Okay, hello, good morning.
Hi.
Hi, lovely to see you all. So, so I feel very passionately about treating plants with homeopathy. When I was little, when I was young, I was always buying plants, and I had my room was like a jungle. And then when I started studying homeopathy, I was giving them arnica, like if there was any damage or something like that. And I saw that it works, but it wasn't until many, many years later that I met Kaviraj in Africa. And only then did I start to get a little bit of tools of what to do. And and the reason why I feel very passionately about this is that, we have so many problems and issues on this planet with agriculture, and how all the agricultural products and chemicals and pesticides and insecticides and fungicides, they are destroying the soil and they are poisoning what we eat. So let's have a look at this PowerPoint. So I just want to give you a brief introduction to agri-homeopathy. And we're going to start a course with Japan and Japanese people, and with Tomoko translating in January. So then we will go more into depth, but I want to just open it up for you, okay? And of course, the idea of agri-homeopathy is that we are using homeopathic remedies in our gardens and farms instead of chemicals. So why now? Why is this so important in this day and age? So first of all, we have, because of climate change and global warming, we are experiencing all over the planet extreme weather conditions. And temperatures are rising. Like, for example, in Europe, this summer was super hot for a very, very long time with no rain at all. Last winter in Finland, for example, it was so cold, and not just cold, but what happened was that there was, first it snowed a lot. So the trees, all the branches were hanging with so much snow. And then suddenly, right after the snowfall, it was suddenly +5. So it all started to melt. And then when it was just starting to melt, suddenly -17 degrees. So it all froze completely through and through, like very, very deep freezing. This caused massive destruction in trees. A lot of trees were just, the branches were breaking because it became so heavy. It was like a war zone in the spring when the snow melted, and you could see the destruction was just unbelievable. And when, for example, there's damage like this to plants, they become much more susceptible to diseases, especially fungal diseases, because there's a cut surface, so they can get into the tree, all those spores. There are flash floods all over the planet. So very irregular, unpredictable weather, and this is causing a lot of stress to the plants, and the farmers are pulling their hair out. They don't know what to do. And another issue that is a huge problem is depleted soil. So there's estimates that, I mean, it depends where you look, but between 30 and 80% of the soil on the planet is dead, like meaning that the microorganisms inside the soil they're not there, or they're not functioning. And there's also polluted soil that's been polluted by all the antibiotics and all the chemicals and pesticides, insecticides, and fungicides are killing the soil. And this is very similar to what's happening to our bodies with the overuse of antibiotics, the overuse of drugs. Our bodies, become, diseased. And then, our health is really jeopardized. Another issue is, of course, pollution and polluted waterways. So because of agricultural phosphates, there's massive overgrowth in lakes and in oceans. And this results in these waters being depleted from oxygen. And if there's no oxygen, because the plants are taking it all up, if there's no oxygen, you have dead fish, you have toxic algae, all of these problems. And of course, chronic disease, especially in children, is really, really rising. They say we are what we eat. Of course, that's not entirely true. We know that, but it's a good indication of it's kind of a little bit true. And certainly, if we eat food that is full of chemicals, then those chemicals, a part of them stay in our bodies. So there's this new concept that is called One Health. It's actually like a movement. You can Google it and see what you can find on the internet. And it's like a holistic way of looking at plant, animal, and human well-being and how they are, interlinked and connected. So there is a lot of rising awareness on this planet about these issues. So really our aims at where we want agriculture to go is so that with the help of homeopathy, is that we could make farms more sustainable. We can make soil more healthy. We can avoid chemicals. We have an alternative for pesticides and insecticides and fungicides, and that we can actually use less water when we make plants more able to hold on to it. That was a little bit long. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
You're amazing.
Yes, I'm amazing. Yes. No, because you have a keyword here. That's okay.
Yeah, it helps. Okay, so let's have a look at some background to all of this. So for me, it all started with a coffee farm here in Kilimanjaro. And what happened is that just after I'd met with Kaviraj, this German woman whose farm it is, she contacted HHA and said, look, guys, I am moving from regular farming into organic farming, and I want help from homeopathy. And when you convert from regular farming into organic farming, the plants really, they have a lot of problems and issues. For some time, until the plant's health is built up, they are very susceptible to every disease and virus and infection and fungal infection. So I'm going to give you some examples of what I've been treating over these years. So just to give you an idea of what we can treat and what we can do. So one thing that is, of course, a big thing is insect infestations. And one of the beginning experiments that Jeremy and I did were on this chrysanthemum farm, also here in Kilimanjaro. And they were full of thrips. Thrip is like a tiny little insect. And this it's a Dutch company, and they had many sort of polytunnels, greenhouses where they grow these chrysanthemums, and then they send them to Holland, the small ones, small plants. And they gave us one of those greenhouses and said, look, we are really in trouble. We can't use any chemicals because Holland has very strict policies of bringing in anything that is infested with chemicals. And they said, is there anything that you could do with homeopathy? So they gave us one of those greenhouses and said, try whatever, this one is yours, do what you like with them. So so first, in the beginning, we had huge success, and the thrips vanished completely. We tried, we had different rows of chrysanthemums, so we were giving this row that remedy, that row that remedy, that row that combination remedy. We really tried hard, and no luck. So we thought, okay, so what can you do? It didn't help. But then a year later, we were at a party, and the man whose operation it is, he came to me and he said, "Hey, Camilla, I've been meaning to tell you the strangest thing has happened." Yeah. And he said, "It's really weird. This greenhouse where you gave all your remedies, this year there are no thrips." So he checked all his other greenhouses, and they were full of thrips. He phoned all the farms, the neighboring farms, and said, "Listen, guys, what is your situation? What's your thrip situation?" And they said, "It's terrible. Just as usual, it's terrible, just the same." And only our homeopathic experiment was completely thrip-free. So from here, we can already see that with plants, it's exactly the same thing as with human beings, where we build up resistance. Not everything is obvious straight away, but after a while you can see that somehow the immunity, the resistance grows. Because plants, they have ways of resisting insects and pests and all this kind of stuff. They have their own defense mechanisms. So here is another really great success that I had early on and was very, very rewarding, is treating aphids on roses. This is my rose bud full of aphids, and here is how it came up after homeopathy. And the main remedy for aphid infestations is Simicifuga. Another success that I had early on was these kinds of beetles that came onto sunflowers, and they were eating all the sunflower seeds. They were having a wonderful culinary experience. And this was on an organic farm in Israel, and the farmers were like pulling their hair out. They didn't know what to do. They said, "You can't," they keep like picking them up, but they come back, and they said, "We're going to lose the whole crop." And I went around this farm with a little bottle of sulfur and a little pipette, a dropper bottle. And I went and I put a drop on each sunflower. I walked around for like 2 hours. And the next week I went back, and they said, "Oh my God," they said, "it's a miracle. They just disappeared." They said, "We don't understand." They just left. They went somewhere else. They gave me a big bag of sunflower seeds as a thank you. Another fabulous result in that same organic farm was treating this kind of a leaf spot on basil. And it's a big problem because when you have those black spots, you can't sell the basil. No one's going to buy it. People make pesto from it, and it's ruined. So I gave the basil silica. Basil loves silica, but the size of the leaves multiplied. They were as big as my palm. They were huge. The farmers said they have never ever seen such massive leaves on a basil before. So that made very, very good pesto. So another example that I want to share with you is with the coffee farm. There was suddenly all the coffee plants, they were flowering, the bushes were flowering, and suddenly there was a very strong storm and huge winds, and all the flowers just fell off. And the farmer was like, totally distressed. She said, "We're going to lose the whole crop." So I had read somewhere that that phosphorus is very good for blooming. So I said, look, we can try it. I don't know if it's going to work. So she said, yes, let's just try it. There's nothing to lose. So we gave phosphorus to all the bushes, and the flowering just resumed. It just started again. All the flowers came back, grew back. Can you imagine if we can exchange the phosphates that are mined with phosphorus? Can you imagine? It's a complete game changer.
Can you say that again?
It's
Sorry.
radical. Can you imagine that all the phosphates that are mined in mines like in Siberia and in mines, they dig them and the phosphates, and then they sell them to the farmers to put on their farms. And those are the ones that make all the lakes overgrow and pollute. And if we can replace that with homeopathic phosphorus, how radical that is, how amazing that is. And then here you can see the coffee, what are they called? It's not fruit, it's berries, coffee berries.
Beans? Berry.
They are berries at this point, then they are called beans after.
Okay.
So then there was a problem because the flowering was so successful that what happened is that there was something called overbearing. Like there was the crop was too big. And the farmer, she said to me, Camilla, it's like a woman who is pregnant with twins, and then she gives birth to them and she breastfeeds both of them and she's exhausted. That's how my coffee plants are. So what did I give the coffee? Do you have any ideas?
Sepia?
Nope.
Nope.
Any other ideas?
他には Fossack?
Nope.
Nope.
Gofea, good idea. I didn't.
China? 示し風が
Yes. Very good, Mr. Ogino. China. Yeah. So that's China was really successful. They recovered in 1 day. They were 2 days. They were fine. Exactly. Loss of you're full, completely full, and then you're empty. And that's the verb of China. I can see that this is in a color that is not very visible. So the thing is that we can treat the soil as well. So this is something that we can always do and very easily do. So we can fertilize the soil, and we can fertilize the plants homeopathically by giving them nutrients in a homeopathic form. And on the course, I will talk more about this and how to do this. Basically, all you're doing is that you're adding the nutrients in a homeopathic form. So you can give mag sulf, kalinit, kalifos, phos, because you can give manganum, boron, magnesium, selenium, zinc, all of the new macronutrients and micronutrients that the soil needs and the plants need. And if we give them in a homeopathic, potentized, energized form, they are very, very effective. Also, what we can easily do, what I just told you about increasing flowering. So this is not difficult at all to increase the amount of flowers, just in a general way. And the main remedy, like I said, is phosphorus. And another remedy, surprisingly, is also arnica. Arnica even extends the life of if you buy flowers and put them in a vase at home, if you add arnica into the water, the flowers will stay around 5 days longer blooming with the arnica than they would do without. Another thing that we can treat is various weather conditions. For, like we said before, too much heat, frost, drought, waterlogging, all of those conditions can be helped with homeopathy. So for example, for frost, one of the main remedies is aconite. So, and this is really beneficial, for example, in the spring, if already, you know, all the blooms are out and everything is out, and then suddenly you have a very, very cold night, then aconite is brilliant. Another good remedy for frost is borax. Heat injury. Main remedies are sol, arsenicum, belladonna, and cantharis if you can really see that the leaves are burnt. And when there's too much rain and waterlogging, homeopathy can be absolutely amazing. Which remedy do you think would be great for that? Any ideas? Yes, exactly. Good, Jumpe. Yes, nat sulf. Nat sulf is the main remedy for that, because nat sulf is, you know, conditions from living in damp basements and cellars and aggravation from water and damp. Drought. There's quite a bit of research into agri-homeopathy. So somebody did a research in India, and they used silica, dulcamara, and sulfur, and they found that they were very, very effective in fighting stress caused by drought. Silica is a really good remedy in drought, because silica, you know how you have all those silica gel little bags when you buy new things in the shops. They are there because they absorb water. A colleague of mine in Finland, she loves to play golf, and she went to the golf course that was there was drought, and she poured silica into the areas where the grass was very you know, damaged, and she said that even 2 years later you could see the place where she had poured the water, that the grass was growing very strongly at that point. Another thing that we can do with homeopathic remedies is we can treat the seeds. You know, when you buy a packet of seeds, it usually even says on the packet that there's a germination rate of like 80% or 70%, because not all the seeds are going to germinate. Also, where homeopathy is very beneficial is when we transfer seedlings into the garden. You know, when you grow the seedlings in little tubes, and then when you take them out and put them into the garden, the roots get ripped, and they are very, you know, the seedlings are very little and weak, and arnica really helps in that transfer process. And also arnica, of course, in repotting, when you are moving plants from a smaller pot into a bigger one, this is a very good time to give arnica. And by the way, if arnica doesn't work, give aconite, because sometimes the shock is, you know, yeah. With the seedlings, there's another research that was done where they found that silica improves the germination and the growth of seedlings. And like we talked yesterday about silica, it is the substance that gives the grit and the tenacity and the resilience to grass, plants, leaves, seedlings, to, you know, to have that grit to grow. So okay, so we can also treat like almost like automatically the garden in different seasons for different things. For example, after the last frost, before the growing season starts, we can treat the seeds, and then we can treat the seedlings. We can treat the transferring phase from nursery into garden. We can prevent expected infestations and problems. We can give remedies during the harvesting. And then we can treat the garden before the hibernation in the winter. So we have different approaches how we look at all of this gardening and farming. We treat the soil, that's the basic. That's like for humans, you know, eating well and taking vitamins and supplements, for example. We want to make the plants more resistant and resilient. We also treat the disease itself, and then we do the combination of both. Different situations require different techniques. So as for different approaches, we can have the isopathic approach. You know what isopathy is. Isopathy is where you treat the same with the same. Not like with homeopathy, where it's like with like. This is same with same. So, for example, you have a bug infestation on your farm. So what you do is you catch the bug, you make a remedy from it, and on the course, we will look at it step by step how to do this. Then you spray it on the crop where the infestation is. So you're treating the infestation with the same, the remedy made from the infestation itself. And this system is very popular in Brazil, for example, in permaculture farms. And examples of this is, for example, Helix tosta, which is made from a snail, and it's treated, you treat with that snail infestations in the garden. Or, for example, we had a big scorpion infestation under our veranda in Israel. So I sprayed the whole area with Androctonus, which is the scorpion remedy, and they all went away. Formica rufa is made from ants, and some people use it for ant infestations. But for me, it's never really worked, because when usually the ants are a result of a problem. The ants are not the problem themselves. They come because there is another issue underneath it. For example, there can be an aphid infestation or mealybugs, and they secrete this kind of a sweet substance, and the ants come to eat that substance. So the ants are not the problem. The problem is the mealybugs or the aphids. So you have to look what's going on. Another approach is friendly companion planting. So for example, tomatoes and basil, they love each other. But instead of just planting tomato and basil next to each other, which is a good way of doing things, you can spray the tomatoes with a remedy made from basilicum. And they say that that makes the tomatoes taste much better. Another approach is enemies. So you treat the infestations with their natural enemies, with biopesticides. Instead of buying 500 kilos of ladybugs, you make a remedy out of ladybug, or you buy it in your pharmacy. Okay, now the next approach is the homeopathic approach, you know, the constitutional approach. At the whole plant, you look at the conditions around where the plant is. You look at the weather, what happened. You look at the soil, you can analyze the soil. You look at problems, you look at obstacles. You look at the possible reason why the plant is not well. And then you find a remedy to cover the biggest totality that you can. And this, of course, takes much more skill. And we're going to be looking at this, you know, in more detail on the course, how to do this. So what kind of results can we expect? In acute infestation of insects, in weather conditions, and in diseases, we expect quick results. And then within the next 1 or 2 years, we're looking at building up the plants and the garden, making it stronger. And yeah. in terms of building up the soil and healing the imbalances in the soil, because you can also treat things like having too much of, for example, salt in the soil by the seaside. This is quite quick to do. This happens in about 1 month, according to our experience on the coffee farm, that you can change, you know, the soil. Okay, just a quick how to do this. How do I give the homeopathic remedies? The first rule is do not use a watering can, because the remedies that you put in the watering can stay there. You can never, it's very difficult to clean the watering can when you want to change the remedy. So the best thing is to use a spray bottle. And you need to use gloves, because you don't want to get it on yourself, because otherwise you get a dose of it. And those gloves in the picture are no good. You need to use like proper, you know, rubber gloves. Also, always spray downwind, otherwise you get the water on yourself. You don't need a lot. 1 to 2 sprays per plant is enough. Try to spray the affected part, but actually it doesn't matter. You just spray anywhere. If you are treating the soil, then water the ground, you know, spray the ground. Okay. Now, the million-dollar question, which everyone always asks is, which potency is the right potency? What should I use? So the first rule is you use what you have. No, really, that's always the best potency is what you've got. There are 2 books in agri-homeopathy, and they give detailed instructions of which potencies to use. And it sounds all very nice, but it's not true that anyone would know which potency is any better than the other potency. But what I do have experience in, and I can tell you that has worked for me, is that when I make a remedy combination for the soil, I think low potencies are better. And then if you have an acute situation and you're giving, let's say just one remedy for that, then you can give a 200C. And it's like I have great results in doing that, and just giving once 200C and boom, the problem is gone. What happened with that rice field yesterday and the typhoon? So how often do I give the remedies? The answer is that it depends. Are we treating an acute situation, or are we treating a chronic situation? If it's an acute situation, you have to repeat usually more often. And in a chronic situation, often one time is enough. Like, for example, if you're treating the soil. Now, I would really, really love for you to send me your results and stories with before and after photos, because this is such a new field, guys, that we need to learn from each other, you know. And I really believe that if we can get this agri-homeopathy up and running, and a lot of us are using it, and a lot of us are talking about it, and we're getting results, and we can do research, then maybe we can save the earth. And yeah, and that's it. And I really look forward to sharing all my knowledge with you, and really going into depth about all these issues and new issues. So here are the expected course dates when we're starting in January 17th. So that's that. I hope it was informative, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you in January.